Alright folks, welcome back everyone. 皆さんお帰りなさい。今日は15日目です。It is day 15. Got a few pointers from yesterday. So we have the Alright, so the conjugation for the u and nu verbs in the e, in the te plus iru to express the kind of like the progressive, the present progressive. Then the verb into its e plus ni and iru or iku. Pretty sure this is usually written in kana or in order to. Is it off the verb? Can it be off the? Gonna have to pay attention to that if it. I don't remember the entry. And then we got our pass, and we're having a focus on standard. So got the verb to and then plus na plus minus na, and kata, which is was or was not, right? In standard. For polite, things that deal with polite, I think because of the way this is inherited from Duolingo, right? The polite and various other places, polite will be kind of like secondary, and there is a setting to focus on standard or polite in Bunpro. We left it on default, which focuses on standard or the plain form or casual form, however you want to refer to it. Okay, let's go over our grammar stuff for today. Let's look at where it is. Okay, I also addressed the streak thing. There is an option to remove this part of the thing, because usually what I think about streak systems is, to make a quick commentary on streak systems. Streak system is like the training wheels to me. It's not that it's a bad thing or anything like that, but it's a training wheel. And what is it a training wheel for? It's a training wheel for motivation. So when you're trying to establish a habit, oftentimes in the world of the algo conditioned behavior, typically people expect to be rewarded or actualized without needing to do the actualization. So like writing in a journal entry can be a really large barrier. So having something that tracks your progress without you having to input additional effort, that is a great way to lean into trying to figure out or being observant of what causes you to want to consistently do something. So this would be one of the very bare minimum things that you can have to lower the barrier. But it's irrelevant to me because my schedule is the most important thing. So like this type of activity can be a bit useful, right, because of its resolution. But this is on training wheels too. The way the load is broken up like this, is on training wheels. Training wheels to me is a structure that is provided for you, not the structure that you have designed and tweaked yourself. So a training wheel is foundation. This would be the foundation. A strict system is a foundation. And eventually when one is like skilled and experienced, these training systems don't necessarily have to be there. So you don't have to be reminded or adherent to the training system. You can edit this. So like I would reprogram this to look at spacing between times. So like this stuff, you're spacing, the volume spacing across between each other, as opposed to the magnitude of each day. That would be the difference. But I'm gonna leave this here. I'm not sure if like we technically don't need this either. But I'll leave this up because it's a lot more explanatory than a strict system. A strict system is an all or none type of thing. And usually, in my opinion, a bit of a hot take, you start with all or none systems for clarity. And then it's kind of like starting anything, really. Like grammar, Japanese, whatever you learn, you start with all or nones. So yes, no, rights, wrongs. Eventually, when you reach an intermediate level, advanced level, and then extreme mastery at the other end, it's largely about the nuances, because the nuances create granularity. So strict systems go out the window and they become less efficacious, relatively speaking, when one learns more things, when they have more habits, when they develop more skills, like more than one skill, because motivation is subjectively disproportionate. So if you develop like 3 skills really, really well, that doesn't mean you're good at motivation, right? Because you won't need new sources of foundational motivation if you're not learning anything new. The things you are currently learning, they become habit formation. So you're less reliant on, you're becoming more and more efficient. There's less and less requirement of outstanding sources of motivation. So that's kind of what the long story short about strict systems. I inherently learn new skills on nearly a yearly basis. So most of the time, sources of motivation doesn't necessarily come from something that is alien to me. It's nice to have strict systems, but they're incredibly rudimentary. Like these things are also fairly rudimentary because they are cumulative things and you can do them yourself, right? Accumulation is excellent. I think badge systems are an evolution of that, and then this type of thing where it's ratioed, it's like you have percentages and ratios is the next level. Accumulation strategies is a one-step process. So a streak is a one-step process. Badges is at least a two-step process. This totality, like a percentage of something, is a two-step process. In a way, this is a graduation of it because it's a two-step process. It's something over time, right? The third step process is rate. So if any of this stuff, this statistics is presented as a rate, then it would be a derivative. So when you're using, it's not the same thing as the derivative of, I'm using derivative as a mathematical term, like a calculus term, not derivative as in one derives from another thing. So rate is a derivative of the two variables here. And this, for example, this is cumulative, but it's across time. So oftentimes these things they can be misinterpreted, and also potentially less informative to individuals who think this way. They think cumulative, right? It's a little mental gymnastics, I would say. like this is one step process. Technically, it's a 1.5 step process where you have compartmentalization, but it's largely cumulative. But when things move, this can decrease and increase, right? So it's kind of like more dynamic. Personally, if one is not learning more and more about how to interpret data when they're using data to inform the decision making, that doesn't make the data any more valuable. So what I mean by that is you can get used to seeing data like number goes up and fail to understand that it becomes less and less efficacious over time, because data, one-dimensional data, does not express or show enough information for someone who become advanced or intermediate. So if you're like really advanced in Japanese and you're still relying on things like this, then that source of data becomes, if that's a source of your motivation, it becomes less and less interesting or useful. In fact, it can potentially obscure or be unable to express what is important, right? When you become intermediate and expert, you're looking at rates and like especially rates over time to understand your trends, not did I do 10 vocabulary today? Did I do like this stuff? This stuff is rudimentary. So it's great to get started. However, you can always be okay and accept the idea that this number, these like cumulative numbers, become less and less impactful, relatively speaking, from a statistical standpoint. They should, and you don't have to learn advanced mathematics to appreciate that. You can appreciate that this number becomes smaller and smaller compared to your volume of things that you know, which could present a mental hurdle for some people. Anyways, here's a little thought. All right, let's get into our grammar sections. Oh, as a quotation, I was aware of this. It can come after pretty much everything. Oh, and then you still need the da. Okay, after an adjective and a noun. Okay. Verbs like, right, because they would be at the end. This verbs. Yep. So we have say, like you, kiku, listen, think, right? Omo. Still kinda like thought, you know, kangaeru, and then ate suru. I'm gonna have to hold off on that one. Like it's still like thought. So it's like thought. Say, heard, thought. Okay, and like I don't have enough nuance to really distinguish between them. We'll have to figure that out later. One of the regular functions of to in Japanese is as a quotation particle. This use is called ki? Are we doing ki? Inyo in Japanese, which basically translates as reference or citation. Inyo or index, yeah, reference or citation. This way of using to can appear after almost any type of word or phrase, but requires da when used after nouns or non-adjectives. So we're kind of this part I haven't considered. So now it's like already beaten over the head like 3 times. So we're pretty good on that now. To like actively remember and look for these things.
先生が危ないと叫んだ。
Sakenda. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yell works too. True. It's kind of funny. It's like verbs like this and then the like and the like. So this is part of the like. Sakenda. Okay.
木村さんが3キロ歩いたと言った。
3キロ歩いた。あ、いや、歩いた。Interesting. 歩い。Huh. Okay.
あれは猫だと思う。
Right.
富士山は綺麗だと思う？
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, right. Yeah, because thoughts aren't. It's kind of a indexing, but thoughts are thoughts, right? To as a quotation mark will always be followed by a verb that shows what type of quote it is. This can be words like, right? You, oh, 考える and 聞く, etc. However, at the end of sentence, the verb will often be omitted. Yeah.
生徒が先生になんでと。
Yeah. なんでと. As with other instances of the particle to being used, this use simply expresses a relationship between A, what was communicated, and B, how it was communicated. Okay, fair enough. All right. We didn't get the other ones yet, but let's go. This is the next one. Can replace to. Intriguing. So, hey, right, is a, I always clap. That's what I do for the, in my head, for like the silence, I always clap once. It's kind of like music where like you're clapping rests, like, you know, da, 1, 2, 3, da, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. So I've inherited that a while ago when I was like in orchestra and playing violin. I usually tap my feet, but since we're like in the camera, just the upper body, I usually clap. So it's kind of like tapping your feet, right? Right. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is te, te, right? It's a casual variation of the to particle that is used for quoting something. This use is called, right, same thing. So inyo in Japanese, which basically translates to reference or citation. Te is almost exclusively used after direct quotations, okay? Just exclusively after direct quotations. And will be followed by verbs indicating what type of communication was used. And now they're using past tense. Interesting. Oh, the past tense. So like, ita, right? Omotta. And, kita. What? Kita, yeah.
行ってきますってママが言った。行ってきますってママが言った。
Interesting.
それは危ないよって先生が言った。
So there's also this thing where plus verb, but in these cases, in order to say who said it, they inserted a subject, actually. Or, yeah, a subject. Or, just like the verb that comes after, te is frequently omitted. This is even more true for te, as many things are omitted in casual speak. And then now they swapped it up and used a topic marker, so tomu, as opposed to emphasizing the subject that was saying the thing. That's kind of a swap up, actually.
トムは今日休むって。
Although often heard due to Being very casual, it can be considered unnatural to use in sentences that also use the des and must polite structure. Okay. However, if the conversation is formal but friendly, like between a senpai and a kohai, most people would consider it normal. Interesting. All right. I'm not sure if it most definitely would happen during certain situations. I'm thinking of like if I can even pick up this in certain conversations. Verb non-past? Wait, why is this here? Did we not cover verb non-past? In Japanese, the non-past form of verbs is identical to the dictionary. Oh, okay. It's a separate thing. But there is an entry for like form and casual form, but it wasn't referred to as a non-past. Unlike English, this form of verb is able to use in several cases where different constructions would be required in English. Okay.
嫁は毎晩映画を見ます。
Okay. It's polite.
俺は明日の昼にピザを食べます。
So polite.
子供は遊ぶ。
Standard. In these examples, we can see the three forms of English that are covered by the single non-past form of Japanese verbs. These are verbs ending with sees, hears, goes, verbs requiring will see, will hear, will go, and verbs that do not require conjugation, see, hear, go. Right. Due to this one form of verb covering several different nuances, it is often important to use expressions of time in the sentence so that the meaning becomes clear, which in my opinion, like for me personally, it's inherited from Chinese. Not like because I am already accustomed to the idea of using one verb and then you require the context to know if it's future or present. And Chinese also have an additional character to indicate past to some extent, but it's usually contextual. Not even no conjugation in Chinese, so purely contextual outside of the one exception of the past. Le.
テイラーは毎朝走る。
Right.
カホは8時に寝る。
Right. If there is no word distinguishing the time in the sentence, the nuance will be that of stating a general fact about something that is true at any time. Yep. How's that in? I think in English it runs parallel in English, despite not having conjugation, right? Or like conjugation in this way, like taking a stem and then changing it. The word itself can change and shift, right? However, it's usually accepted as general fact if no specifics are made.
赤ちゃんは泣きます。
From all of these examples, we can see that the non-past form can be thought of as expressing one of three basic ideas: general facts, habits, and future events, right? In books, the non-past form will regularly be used for events that are happening in the moment, but without any time word being used. In these cases, it is usually obvious from context that it is happening then and there, right? Which is kind of bridging the present progressive situation, which is also a different form as well in Japanese. So I can kind of see where the caution comes from. Like something that's happening then and there or in the moment can also be present progressive. Like it is happening at the time. Let's see, we got this applies to, right? Godan, Ichidan. And then, or it's related obviously to all the tenses because this is non-past, so it's related to the past tense. Yeah, all like, so we did have separate entries for non-past expression, but they had the an additional grammar point to highlight that it is non-past, and it is basically related to all the past and present tense of Godan and Ichidan verbs. Okay. Verb modified noun relative clause. Only verbs, wait. Only verbs in short form can modify nouns. Do not use polite, right? In Japanese, if you want to describe something or someone that's performing an action, one of the ways you can do this is through a relative clause. A relative clause is when two phrases are joined into one sentence rather than two individual sentences. The in plain and then eiru continuous, right? We do have the continuous form, which is the present progressive or related to the present progressive of the previous card form of the word, and then we don't consider ourselves, we don't do mas, right, des and related things.
たかしさんは東京に住んだ男。
Interesting. And this also takes into account, which is not written here, interesting enough, that the verb, wait. Oh, okay. No. It's assumed that you're doing the proper tense conjugation here. So this is sun da, because sun da, sun is sumu, right? Sumu, so it's a u verb, a godan, and then the ending for it is da, not ta. So you still have to take into consideration the tense conjugation of the verb. Hence the sunda. Wait. Yes.
たかしさんは東京に住んだ男。
Right, and then the person, the man, otoko. Okay.
あなたが食べたハンバーガー。
Ichidan, right? Ichidan. And Ichidan pass.
田中さんが飲んでいるコーヒー。
And then this is the te form conjugation. The te form conjugation, we have nomu. Nomu is a de because of the te form. So for me, I would do some, like, my notation. It's the same thing as Bunpro, but I think of it more like this way, where you're taking the te form of the verb before, and then iru is like existing in the current moment, so you still require to conjugate to the proper te form before saying you're currently doing that thing, right? They do explain it that way. Their notation, their structure notation is different from how I functionally look at it, but like that's perfectly fine because the element itself is teiru that's being added to the stem of the verb.
道で寝ている犬
Ichidan. Do verbs and u verbs follow there. Yeah, so they do explain it eventually. I'm just, obviously, for me, I tend to do the exercises as I'm going. So despite if something is, here's an exercise that I typically do that I don't know how often people do it anymore, but regardless if this text is static or not, or your expectations, right? If someone is, here's a little bit of a digression. I think there is a huge gap between those who expect something to be explained to you versus someone who consistently actively reads something. So, I think one of the biggest gaps here is this. When you're thinking about expectations and explainers, you're talking about net behavior, like behavior on the internet. This is the informative state. So the informative state to me is what people believe, what I coin as explicit learning. So there's often explicit learning, but they don't have to be exclusive. It doesn't have to be exclusively explicit learning. Actively reading inquires that there's also implicit learning and explicit learning. It's not completely void of explicitness, but active reading. So when you read something and it jogs your memory, like you know other things, right? Know other things. The goal to actively reading is you're engaging yourself and relating to the information you already know. So if you're reading this for the first time and you have no idea what's going on and whatnot, then likely that it'll stay in explicit learning. However, over time, when you're like reading things and you know things that are related, which for the record, when someone is incredibly experienced and they are always an active learner, they usually have something to say about most things they read. Like when you're looking at this, there's enough experience and understanding, even English, that you can interpret these things and try to rephrase them as you're going. The idea is it creates active reading or active participation. And this active participation is a lot slower, but the quality is higher. That is one of the biggest things that I observe. That is a huge gap. Like, a couple people have given me the privilege of being able to observe them while they're studying and while they're describing what they do in class and whatnot, and rarely, it's often passive. This is explicit information, expectations based on explainer is like nearly 80% passive. So in one ear, out the other, passive. So when I'm reading this, I'm trying to illustrate what's going on in my head because I actively read most of the things. I actively participate in the things I choose to do. When I play a video game, I'm actively thinking about things. That is sometimes very deceptive because when you're expecting something and you're explaining something, this is considered immersion. I already had a huge talk with James about his difference between mass input. This is mass input. Most of mass input is considered immersion, which is you have things explained to you, illustrated to you, and that goes beyond that, right? Like there's, it doesn't go beyond that. It rarely ever goes beyond that. You are given an example, you see the example over and over again, you are mass inputting, and therefore it's immersion, right? You are immersed in expecting, going for the ride, like everything's explained to you. To me, that is not immersion. Like for me, for the lack of a better word, this is not immersion. It's called passive learning. Active learning is when you're immersively learning. So For the longest time, whenever someone tells me, oh, they're immersing in Japanese, I'm like, okay, what do you do when you're immersing in Japanese? Oh, I just listen to things over and over again until it sinks in. I'm like, yeah, that is certainly one way to look at immersing in something. Like you immerse yourself in Japanese, so you just sink and get swarmed and inundated with Japanese. That's immersion. I totally get it. Now I'm gonna rephrase it because that's passive learning. It's mass inputting passive learning. You're hoping to sponge things up like you were a kid or something, which that's perfectly fine if it works for you. Learning immersively requires experience, an adult brain, which if you don't like learning as an adult, that's perfectly fine, because the mass input way, which I don't use as the same as immersion, they're not the same. Mass input, if you're into mass input, it's perfectly sufficient. And mass input typically caters to the idea of being a child again. You're inundated with things. What is like, in my opinion, what uses this method? Doom scrolling, algorithms, YouTube shorts, right? They serve you mass input on what you do. So it becomes more and more passive. You're not making decisions, you're not doing active recalls, you're not engaging actively or relating to them. They're selectively converging and providing enough information so that you can mirror it, you can mimicry, right? And it can be grindy, because over time, if it doesn't sync passively, you're going to continue to grind that way. You're not looking for alternative ways or being creative or doing other things because you're not actively participating in it. You're limited by what information is available to you. So like, if you can't capture the perfect essence of mirroring someone's native Japanese speaking, then it is the only way you'll ever succeed. You have to be able to do it. For myself, mixed bag. I do this in the evenings. So I do tell people that I immerse in the evening, probably largely the way they immerse in Japanese. That is not where I do most of my learning. I actually do not learn a lot from, like, I learn stuff, right? Relatively speaking, I learn stuff through immersion, the net speak immersion, where you sit there and expose yourself over and over again and try to pay attention to the literal explicit things that are given to you. Most, relatively speaking, it pales in comparison to immersive learning, which is not the content part. It's not as content dependent. It's dependent on your participation in the content. So this can happen. It can happen both at the same time. Like when you're going through vlogs and suddenly you're like, oh, this is really interesting. Then you suddenly learn more. That's when you found your key to your immersive learning with mass input. So a lot of times the hot take, oftentimes, or the hidden secret for people to be consistent is, oh, make sure it's something you like. Make sure it's something you're personally associated with or connected with. If you can find a content in a context that you're specifically engaged in immersive learning, that's mass input with active participation. So yes, it still happens, but I think people push it off, it's like some secret. In my opinion, the problem with why it's a secret is because the way immersion learning is marketed, it's a passive process. So much of it is a passive process. And it's only when, so like Mikaku requires that you have to do this part. To do this part, right? You load up the things you are interested in. So because you are interested in it, you are likely more like, you're more likely to be active while doing it. So that's what I mean by immersive learning, which is pretty interesting that I still have to defend this or demonstrate this to people who think that they are learning a lot from mass input. I don't think mass input is enough nuance. You can sit there and grind all day long reading these passages passively, and it will feel like a textbook. A textbook to those people. For me, textbooks were interesting because every time I learn something, I have an incentive to use it. So this is where it leads to the whole output thing, where people think that output doesn't lead to learning, or it's inefficient and it's a waste of time while you're outputting. Well, outputting guarantees that you're actively reading for something. It almost guarantees, like, if you're expected to speak right after you read something, you have to pay attention to what you're about to listen to in order to do it. So it elevates active reading. If you have an exam that you're reading to study for, because the exam you need to output it, then you are reading intentionally and intently while you're mass inputting. And yes, it does slow you down because it is increasing the quality of your mass input. It's a combination of these two that creates immersive learning. And immersive learning is not dependent on the quality of the content. Well, it's less so. But it is nice to have quality content, like a native speaker would be quality content. But if you don't like the native speaker and you could care less what the native speaker is speaking of, then it still, in my opinion, does not qualify as immersion because you're not immersed in it. You're detached from it. That's the whole point of immersion. I think immersion is so cheap by saying, oh, just surround yourself in things. You can be lonely while surrounded in the thing you need to learn. Try thinking like this is a really fun exercise. Go to a room of people, like go into a chat room of people you don't relate to. You could be surrounded with stimuli and you could care less what everyone is saying. That is being immersed in something and still detached from it. Like you can feel loneliness while surrounded by thousands of people because you're not immersely in it. You're not actively interested in anything around you despite that. So this to me is something that isn't distinguished, in my opinion. It's rarely distinguished. The hope is that if you mass input yourself, you would be able to find something you can immerse in. That's why they're connected. I don't think they're separate. So like I know I'm drawing contrasts between them in order to demonstrate that there are things that don't overlap between them. Immersive learning is not the same as mass input. And immersion is most definitely not the same as immersive learning. You can immerse yourself in Japanese content and still fail to immersively learn because you could care less about the content. You go to school, you're surrounded constantly and consistently by math problems by your teacher, and you learn nothing, right? You can still fail an exam despite being obligated to be surrounded by textbooks, people who are learning the same thing, a person helping you and guiding you, and you can still learn nothing. That is the same thing as heritage speaking. You can grow up around parents who speak a different language than your common language, and you could only learn like 10% of it. Even when you're a child, and you have an obligation to learn the least amount to get by, right? Immersive learners learn the highest quality and quantity of something because they are genuinely wanting to expand and associate with it. They're looking for tasks, output tasks to do. Children behave in a very similar way. They are obligated to learn something that they need to output in order to get a result. So in heritage speaking, if the child is not interested in the output of something, they do not retain the skills for it. So, or practice it even. So it's both. It goes back to that, like my constant digression about people spewing input only. Input only is sufficient. It could be. It's theoretically sufficient for output. That doesn't say it's the best. And also, it's very different from being the most appropriate way. Net algorithm has made input only more appropriate starting point for most people because they're doing this 90% of the time. Like, I can't tell you how many times when I ask someone, it's like, oh, so why are you having difficulty in class? Why do you not like class? Or how are you not learning when you keep making the same mistake in class? The person will respond, it's because the teacher doesn't tell me and explain to me why I keep making the same mistake. Like, yeah, because you spend like 90% of your time explicitly expecting information to be given to you through mass input. There's no active thinking or critical solving or problem solving skills you need to know. The internet explains that to you. So there's no active critical thinking. So yes, input only is sufficient to allow you to try to mirror and mimic your mass input. If you want to sound like a native speaker, go copy a native speaker. That's great. Is that considered learning to me? No, it's not. It's repetition. Like, it's mirroring, it's recognizing, and it's memorizing. But without the completed process of being able to output something that you generate, like generatively creating an output from the input, then expression of your feelings, expression of your artistry, expression of your thoughts and stuff is still going to be laborious in a way that it is an input as mirrored by output, not created by output. So that effortless nature of expressing your opinion with your native language is both, is when you have both, not one or the other. So this part is tied. I do this every single day. When I was younger, I had no basis, right? When I was younger, I had no experience. So there's no way I can actively read something. It's very difficult to actively read something. The way you can do it when you have no experience is curiosity. So when you're younger, children have curiosity. So curiosity fuels the active exploration when you lack experience. However, when you become an adult, you are dependent on the experience that you have now. You have a lot of experience. And without leveraging your experience and pretending like immersion is the key, to me, like immersion as in immerse yourself, like surround yourself in the context, then what you're doing is you're removing all the experience you have as an adult. Like most of it. You're trying to pretend like this experience is not useful anymore. Like, oh, I'm an English speaker, but in order to think about how to speak Japanese, I'll pretend like I'm a Japanese speaker by surrounding myself in Japanese, and somehow I will learn like a child again, be curious enough because I have no experience in Japanese. Right? That's the theory. The theory is it's easier when you immerse yourself in the correct things, and you're hoping that your child's zeal will have the basis curiosity to learn despite pretending, in my opinion, pretending and lying to yourself that your existing experience does not affect the way you're curious about things. And then you have like as young as 20-year-olds who say like, oh, you know what? I don't understand why Japanese isn't fun learning Japanese, but whenever I watch anime and manga, it's fun. Like, well, yeah, because when you're watching anime and manga, it deals with your prior experience. When you're trying to learn and immerse and do other things, you're surrounding yourself in a way that it doesn't leverage your experience. You would need natural curiosity to be interested in something you have no experience with. So then the question is, you ask the person, the adult, right? The adolescent or the person who have already learned a language, what is it that makes Japanese curious to you? And their answer would be something like, well, I like the Japanese culture. Or I want to learn so I can do anime and manga and, you know, consume content. And your next question is, so then how is anime Japanese culture related to your experience? And that's where you start. Because if they are interested in these things, it has to be an output related motivation. So whenever they learn something, like they're reading this textbook, for example, you're reading, this is kind of like a textbook oriented thing. When you're reading this, your thought should be, I wonder if I can find this in an anime I'm watching. When was the last time or situation that this would occur? That's active reading. This is immersive learning. So you don't need, it's not context dependent. Like immersion, it's not because the content has to be native Japanese. That is so wild to think that when you're learning something, it's because you surround yourself with things you are unfamiliar with. That is, to me, very short-sighted. It's almost asinine, actually. Pretty foolish to think that learning is completely contextual dependent, as opposed to and ruling out experience dependent things, especially when you're getting older. Maybe when you're a child, right? Maybe that's what they're aiming for. A bit of a digression. I think my ideas are becoming a little bit more developed as I'm going in and doing this myself. Anyways, so in Japanese, if you want to describe something or someone that's performing in action, right, we did this, right? No. One of the ways you can do this is through, a relative clause. Yes. So we would take the relative clause, which is everything before it, and then you conjugate it using, right, because we already did this, you follow the conjugation rules for the tense, and for either the past tense, right? The past tense, or when it's currently doing the thing, you use the te form, right? In the first example, we can see that Takashi-san is a man that lived in Tokyo is one sentence, rather than Takashi-san is a man, he lived in Tokyo. In English, words like that and which are used to create a relative clause. Makes sense. However, I call it, what did I call these things? I used to call these things something else. But anyways, however, seeing as though these words do not exist in Japanese, the first phrase is simply attached to the noun. However, seeing as though these words do not exist in Japanese, right? It's just attached to. Fair enough. Because it's literally attached I think that's that's more efficient. The must form of verbs may not be used when making a relative clause. Yes. So, as understood. Related things. Teiru, right? We already mentioned that. That's the expressing a completed action or past state. But more like in like a it is happening or I am reading or like an ing kind of form. And however, when describing a noun state, the past form is often preferred over the teiru form. However, when describing a noun's state, okay, the ha is preferred over that. Intriguing. For example, shinda, nezumi. I see. And it's more common than shinderu nezumi. Nezumi. Okay. Okay. Right. Conjugations in the past because that happened in this example, and then do verbs past tense. So we gotta have to at least do those things, which is mentioned in this description, right? Okay. No. Possessive use. Noun omission. I think we might have had a possessive use already, but without noun omission. So how does noun plus no plus previously mentioned noun? Oh, yes. Yeah. So the noun is being dropped because it becomes more like a implied pronoun, so to speak. Like in the no. So a common pattern in Japanese is referring back to a noun that has already been mentioned without actually repeating it. This is achieved through the use of the particle no in a similar way to its standard possessive use. The noun that would usually follow no is dropped as it has either been said earlier in the sentence or is understood clearly from context. Right?
この本はたけしさんのです。
So, yeah. And this time it's in the sentence. I'm actually kind of curious if that probably still, yes, it does. Okay. Yeah.
そのペンは誰の？あなたの？
Yeah. So it also happens between clauses, right? Like if you're already referring to the pen and then you say another statement or another question referring back to the pen from a different clause, because this example is within a clause, within an independent clause, but this is within two independent clauses, two questions, so to speak. In these examples, it would also be grammatically correct to use the same noun following no, but as can be seen in the English translation, it results in unnecessary repetition. But as can be seen in the English translation, it results in unnecessary repetition. No. I mean, yes, but no. In colloquial, you don't repeat that either. You would use, is it yours? Without a pen. Like what I mean is you can say, is it yours? Not, is it your pen? You don't have to. There's a, in fact, actually this is closer to net speak. So it results in unnecessary, it can result in unnecessary repetition, but usually you also don't repeat those either. NetSpeak, at least in my opinion, is even more brief than this. So But I'm guessing they're talking about this. That pen, like, in maybe like, who is it? Whose is it? Or whose is it? Right? Instead of saying pen, 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 right? Even within a clause, you would replace it with a pronoun. So I don't think, and a pronoun is not unnecessary repetition, right? Whose is it? Oh yeah, it's already said here actually. It's already right here. Whose is it? Yeah. They don't say pen. That pen, whose is it? Is it yours? So my gripe with this, I often find this a little distracting sometimes. When something exists, it doesn't necessarily mean it happens often. But there's kind of somewhat of a double standard when it comes to writing, especially translation, where people try to look for things that exist and don't exist in something. But just because something does exist in one thing and doesn't exist in another thing, it doesn't mean the thing occurs very frequently. Like that pen, whose is it? Is it yours? That would be the typical thing. It could and can result in unnecessary repetition. But generally speaking, no, it would be really weird for someone to say pen 3 times in this statement, at least in my opinion. So the incentive to not repeat something exists in both languages. This is called stacking redundant words, right? So is in English. It's redundant. That's why you use pronouns, or one of the motivations to use pronouns if you want, which is it. It is the pronoun. And then possessions usually omit the thing that you've already referred to. So you add an S. Is it yours? Unlike no, attaching a no to the person. Yours. Or it's. Hers. His. I disagree with this to some extent. I mean, I disagree in the sense that it's not wrong. Like what I mean is, yeah, it results in unnecessary repetition. Certainly, it's inclusive of that. This is called word stacking redundant. What is it called? Kakine. Kakine kotoba? Oh, right. No, kasane, as in kasaneru to stack, right? So kasane kotoba. In Japanese, and is considered a poor writing speech habit. Okay. Despite this, it is important to know that this no is exactly the same as the possessive no, with the following words simply being left out. Fair enough. I could probably agree with this contrast. In writing, it would be scientific. If I had to make a little like slight nuance in scientific writing, you would probably be encouraged to use repetition. In colloquial writing, like I don't know, creative writing, right? Like books and stuff, that would be a stylistic choice. And in colloquial writing in general, for speech, this would be repetitious. So you would get rid of these things. This book is Takashi-san's. In fact, it's, you know, in English, it'd just be, this book is Takashi's. Or even further, if Takashi is already mentioned, this book is his. Right, so that would be colloquial writing. But I do have to hand it to them. When it comes to poor writing or speech habits, speech habits would be a stylistic choice in English, I suppose. But if we're taking NetSpeak as a model, then it would be poor speech habits as well. And in terms of poor writing, again, I don't know. I've never read Japanese scientific writing, but generally speaking, when you're writing scientifically, you have to constantly you want to be redundant, because being redundant means you're being specific. You want to remove any error of ambiguity. So yes, like it's one of those things that if you're coming from a creative writing standpoint or a colloquial writing standpoint and you start writing scientific writing, one of the first things, at least in my opinion, that one must embrace is to be specific and redundant and as possible. So like if you took this solution of water and milk and transfer it into a beaker, then you take the beaker and transfer the solution of water and milk into a container, take the container with the water and milk and transfer it into a graduated cylinder. So in scientific writing, it is proper writing to be as specific as possible. So you cannot omit and truncate the thing. I actually have no idea what the standards are for Japanese scientific writing, but generally speaking, when they say poor writing and speech habits, I imagine they're referring to creative writing and colloquialism. I would think that even in writing, if you do Japanese writing and you start doing this stuff, I feel like it would be very difficult in scientific writing, because you're making inferences and contextual things. And science, when you're doing scientific stuff, you're trying to remove inferences, right? To be objective is not to mitigate inferences. You're trying to be objective. So objectivity means that you're redundant. You constantly have to refer to the thing. You're not letting the reader learn by context or ambiguity, which is kind of funny because a lot of writing nowadays is construed as objective, which led to the current net expectation of things always being explained to you with objectivity. So kind of like, oh, how do I learn how to deal with my depression? Objectively speaking, they're looking for an objective explanation, not an inference explanation where like, oh, try to be happy more. That's an inference. So whenever someone says like, oh, try not being depressed, that's an inference. It's like you're inferring a lot of things, right? What is the answer to not being depressed? Not be depressed, right? But objectively, it would require like detailed, oriented, redundant instructions for that. So I don't know where this is going, but it is interesting. I typically have reservation between words like unnecessary, poor, correct, whenever describing these things. It goes back to my first thing about fundamentals. When you're learning fundamentals, it's great to have clarity that it's like correct, it's unnecessary, it's poor, or good, yes and no. So I'm not saying that this is poor, right? This isn't poor writing. It's to create clarity. You're trying to emphasize what it is. However, for myself, I'm actively reading this stuff. So like I take most of what is written with a grain of salt a lot of times, because it's not from the perspective, in my opinion, of someone who's experienced with writing and language learning. Like you might be thinking, well, Maku, you only started learning a second language formally now. It's like, but English has a lot of versions of English. Like you have creative writing, you have colloquial writing, and you have professional writing. And professional writing is specialized into multiple subgroups. There's a reason why someone reads a scientific journal, it reads like a scientific writing. It doesn't read like creative writing. So you do learn your language again and again and again. Like, and you might be arguing, well, it's easy, right? It's got to be easier to learn when things are similar to each other. Well, pros and cons. Things that are similar together are difficult to distinguish when you need to, because they are subtle and nuanced. So that's the process of mastery. When you're in the beginning, it's easier to distinguish between them, but it's alien and unfamiliar. So right now, this stuff might seem easy, but when you get to the point of mastery, then you're tackling nuance. And then your tune changes. You're like, oh, but the nuances are the things that are difficult. Yeah, because they are similar. So no, it's neither harder or easier. It's usually what you have practiced more often. Things that are very similar are easy in general at first, and then they become the crux of difficulty with mastery, because if things are very similar, it's hard to distinguish them. So when you're thinking, oh, it must be really easy to write professionally in a native language in which you have learned and mastered the language. If you think professional writing is easier and really easy to acquire because colloquially you know how to speak the language, how many times have you read someone's thing, even though you're not experienced, and you say, this reads like garbage? Or how many professional writers do you think are universally acclaimed for being professional writers? Like, it's a very small percentage. So no, it's not. The reason for the gap is because when you're at mastery, the gap is this small. When you're in foundational, the gap is this big. So relatively speaking, yes, it seems like it's easier because the distance of the gross difference between a novice and a master, right, is small. So when you get to that point, your perspective often shifts. The gap between here feels like the gap between here. And that's the word gap that I was talking about. The difference, the gap is huge between someone who passively learns using mass input as a, in my opinion, as a crutch to start, because this will become the crutch, in my opinion, if this is the only method you rely on. The gap is because then there's immersive learning, and that requires this understanding. So when you're going into like advanced topics and intermediary and getting into your later form of your career, it's no longer about mass input. It's about immersive learning. It's not that mass input doesn't exist. There's a use case for both of them, but you start off 80% with mass input, and you might get 20% of immersive learning. When you start delving into it, it shifts to 80% and 20% here. And this transition, slow transition, it's not like an on and off switch, but the slow transition between mass input, passive mass input, and immersive learning is the transition that either breaks the person. It causes the quitting effect or the burnout effect. Immersive learning mitigates burnout. The symptoms. It's not like the only remedy for it, but it mitigates burnout, because all the symptoms of burnout deals with using a single approach or a single mentality or mindset that doesn't offset the exponential increase in time to get the quality, because this is quantity at first, largely because the gap is this big. So you have a lot of things to work on, a lot of things to gather through mass input. eventually this is what's left. And there's more to this. Mastery of things that already exist is this small, but there's also creation, which has no theoretical upper limit. So conceptually, once you master something, quote unquote, master something that exists, then you enter a leadership position. And now you're in the creative process. And the creative process is to create something that doesn't exist in the large gap of the large gap of foundations and mastery. That's when you get, like, for example, your black belt. For example, you get your black belt and it closes the chapter on things that exist. Things that can be explicit and actively engaged in. Now you're a master. So now you're in the process of creating. That's where arts and all the other things come in, right? And people don't have to do this. They don't, because Lifetime has so much other things to offer. But if you truly then become a master, most of the time the people that say they mastered something, they're like, you can't really truly master anything because there's no upper limit, theoretical upper limit to creation. Yeah. Anyways, I just thought this was interesting. It's gonna be hard for me to forget this point of view right here. Anyways, next one. Oh no, we're done. That was our last topic. Cool. So we're doing pass, polite, and quotation. So many things at once. So we want the quotation, right? And then we know that it's a ichidan, right? So it's gonna be, the stem is gonna be ki, and then it's just gonna end with ta, right? No? Oh no, it's a ku. Sorry, it's a ku. So ku is e and then ta. How about a grammar pattern that's a bit more... Oh, polite. Whoops. I forgot. Polite. So, then it would be... Oops. Okay. And then we have to do the polite thing. Is that just de? And then you do? We need the te. Oh, and then pass. I don't know. Oh no. Oh, hold on. I can figure this out. Yeah, so you still conjugate the stem in the past. So how do you... As polite is just... That doesn't seem right, does it? Can you include something else at the beginning? What is that? Shinsetsu? Oh, Shinsetsu. Wait.
彼はとても親切だと聞きました。
Eventually I figured it out. Okay, so we had to keep in track. Okay, so the four things, right? The four things. Forgot to check na, right? This is a na adjective. So this is the da for that. This is the quotation, right? This is the quotation. This is the stem. Oops, the stem of this. And then this is the conjugation for the polite. And then this is the past tense for the polite. Eventually had to get there. Okay. Casual quotation particle. I'm gonna be real, I totally forgot what the casual coding is. Casual quotation particle. And there's nothing else we can do outside of knowing what the casual quotation particle is. Okay, thank you. How it's clap, right? The clappy. So wait, how do I do that? Just this? Okay.
乾杯って言いたい。
Birds fly. The verb is used as a general truth. So we just do what? Oh, polite.
鳥は飛ぶ。鳥は飛びます。
Okay. Wash the past standard. Why do we need to know past standard? Okay.
洗った服。
I didn't remember a grammar point for past standard as a lesson today. This is like an older... I thought this was an older lesson. That's interesting. And then we're basically... Yeah, the quotation gives it away.
その帽子は娘のです。
Right. And again, I disagree that this is even there to begin with. It's like this hat is my daughter's. Or is hers, and then you can replace my daughter's with hers if my daughter's was mentioned before. The hat is hers, right? So there are normal non-repetitious things in English. Now, is that grammatical? That's a good question. I have no idea. Like, if you said that hat is hers, I'm not sure if that's proper writing in English. Or that hat is my daughter's without like a noun. I don't know that's considered grammatically correct. So that's probably what they mean by poor writing. And like in Japanese it would be considered poor writing, but in English maybe writing hat here, right? My daughter's hat is like the grammatically correct, right? This is grammatically correct English when you're writing something. And then omitting it is like only colloquial speak, because if you wrote it like this in a text, like in a formal writing, it would not be not grammatically correct. That might be what they're referring to. Obviously, I'm trying to explain why it was said versus what I think is happening now as a interesting way. So curious. I will probably have to look it up myself. The other activity that I plan to do sometime down the road is to this is going to be like 2 years from now, 2028 or 2029-ish. I was going to go and pick up in English an ESL textbook or an ESL like source. And I was going to use the Japanese or the Chinese thing to read the ESL course, like to read the ESL material, to learn. So stuff like this would be answered in doing that. Figuring out if English, this would be considered this would be considered grammatically incorrect in English. So if you say that hat is my daughter's on an English test, on an English paper or a test, this would be marked wrong, right? So that might be what they're referring to. But anyways, that's a little down the road. Lots of people ask me like, what am I gonna do next in the future when I quote unquote master Japanese or Chinese or get better at Chinese or Japanese? I'm gonna read English texts. Because I've realized that when I'm learning Japanese and Chinese, native speaking English doesn't mean you understand this stuff. It's the same with the native speakers that you speak to and interact with in Chinese and Japanese. If they're not teachers and whatnot, they don't know everything. They intuit most things. So when you have something to be explained and taught, that doesn't guarantee that they're good teachers, right? It's kind of like, hey, we all have feelings, That makes us all really good at emotional management and empathy and compassion and sympathy, right? Well, some people have argued against me and said there's no such thing as emotional intelligence. Like, well, it takes someone who doesn't understand emotional intelligence to say there's no such thing as emotional intelligence, right? Like, you're telling me that if there's no such thing as emotional intelligence, that also means that you can get along with everyone because you don't need a form of practice or understanding of emotional intelligence to do that? It's like, well, yeah. How would that person explain that there's no such thing as emotional intelligence? They would explain it by, well, the people like me, they have good taste. If the people who don't like me, then they don't have good taste. Like, okay. Well, if you live in a world where you only acknowledge the existence of people who like you, then yes, there's no such thing as emotional intelligence to you, because it requires emotional intelligence to understand why people don't like you and people do like you and how you can do something about it. So this would be the same case, where if you're a native speaker, that doesn't make you a great teacher, right? You can do things and demonstrate them, and you hope that the other people gain inspiration from them, and then that it would encourage them to be like you, not through instruction, not through expression, but observation. So it's good for mass input. It's not so great, in my opinion, for immersive learning. Immersive learning requires the investment of both the native speaker, the person demonstrating, and the person observing or interacting. And it does require interaction between those two sources in order to have immersive learning. It can be a one-way interaction. Like, for example, a viewer views some content and they're immersively learning from it. Like, they're interacting with the content. They're like, oh, you know what? That means if I learn this, I can do this. That is immersive learning. When you're thinking, oh, okay, that's an example of that, and it just stops there, that's mass input without immersive learning. That's, oh, now I know. Not now I understand, or now I'm interested, or now I know how to use it, which is understanding. I know. And then in a week's time, or maybe even tomorrow, dear me, some people forget it in like 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes. They would see something and they would immediately forget it. That's mass input without immersive learning. You can doom scroll for an hour and you would retain nothing. It's very appropriate now, because back in the day, this phenomenon, at least in my opinion, this phenomenon was experienced largely through when you have too much of something, like your parents' presence. If you have too much of your parents' presence, then when they nag at you, it becomes less and less efficacious, because you learn to be more and more efficient at ignoring it, right? So you're actually learning something, but that learning also negates what you could have learned from it. And this is very much the same nature. It's also one of the root, in my opinion, one of the root and core foundations of the native speaker fallacy, which is the idea that, oh, I'm saying all this stuff about English because I speak English really well. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't mean I know how to teach English and show all the dimensions of English that someone else might have a problem who happens to be Japanese. So like, if a person is looking for someone who they want to observe and immersively learn from, I could be a person like that. If they're asking, oh, they want to interact with me with all the intricacies of the English grammar and stuff that I don't practice anymore, then that would be a fallacy, because I would not be able to explain to you whether this is grammatically correct or not without, like, with the parentheses even. Like, if you wrote this out in a sentence, like on a piece of paper, would your English teacher be like, nah, you can't put this in a parentheses, this is wrong? Right? I wouldn't be able to tell you. It's very similar when you fully trust a Japanese native speaker, any Japanese native speaker, as like, oh yeah, they're right, this is what they say. So then you go around and propagate that to everyone else. It's like, well, no, that would be very inappropriate. Like, I don't go around saying I'm a native speaker, so as a native speaker, I have authority over who's right about English. I can tell you now, people who are learning English have taught me many things about English. And I would imagine if both the Japanese speaker is interested in English and an English speaker interested in Japanese, when they interact, they would learn way more understanding and communication, because they're both immersively learning from each other. It's an ideal case, obviously, ideal case. Then one person not invested, and then the other person passively observing the other person. That's kind of what I think happens most of the time with Japanese language learners. They passively immerse in things, and then the other person is just a subject that either think they're doing the right thing and the person observing think it's the right thing. Happens a lot, I'm telling ya. Alright, let's go through our vocabulary. Hi. Pardon? Hi? Yeah, hi? Hi. Hi. Hello. Now, here you go. Oh, like, hi, instead of like, dozo. Right? I still think dozo as opposed to hi. And giddy up? Get what the heck? Gadap? Gadap? How do you get up? That's interesting. Okay. Midori and greenery, fair enough. Daikirai, like absolute immensely dislike. Yeah, daikirai. Kirai tendency, smack of, usually written in hana, tendency, smack, touch. I don't know what that means yet. There is another thing coming up that can elaborate on it. Distinction, discrimination. That I can follow. This tendency. Interesting. Huh. Oh no. Skuru. Oh no. The skuru. To till. Right, trollop, create, to coin, sure. Right, to have a child, right? To make up, right? Fabricate, yes. To give a, to feign, really. To give a false impression. Oh, it could be something like imitate and fabricate and stuff too. Yeah, I can kind of see that too. To form, to set a record, to commit. Not as crazy as I thought upon reflection. Like, I still remember the first time when I saw Skuru. I'm like, whoa, these things don't feel like they're related to each other. But for the most part, except to till, I'm not sure. I guess you're making something, right? You're tilling. I'm guessing it's a tilling, the farm tilling, or like agricultural tilling, or actually, I don't know how many tills there are in English. Let's go look. Oh no, it's not even that. Up to a point in time? No, that doesn't make sense. A cash register. Oh, drawer till. Oh, prepare and cultivate. Okay. It's a third till that I'm thinking of. But there's also till as in cash register, or drawer for money. But that's a noun. So the till that I'm thinking of is the tilling. The proper and cultivate. Props. And then the other one's a preposition. Oh, till as in until. Until. Till with two L's. Okay. Oh, there's a fourth one? Oh, the till. The sentiment. Sentiment consisting of various particles and stuff. Okay. I think it's to till. Like, I can kind of see it in building, manufacturing, produce. Noru, right? This is to get on, to ride, to... Oh, no. It's not necessarily to ride. It's like, it's often translated like to ride. Like, to be carried or to be spread, right? To take part, participate, to follow, to stay. Okay. I think we're okay with Noru. Betto. Okay. Betto. Yasumi, right? Dormancy, interesting. For caterpillar, like for metamorphosis. Reizouko, right? Reizouko. Hana. The other hana. I think we got nose already, so... they're both hana. The same pitch accent as well. There's the hanafuda. Hanafuda. I don't know what the pitch accent is for. I'm guessing it's hana, and then fuda is hanafuda. It could be hanafuda, but probably hanafuda. Ikebana. We'll come to that another time. The full fat computer. Computer. Wait.
Computer.
Computer. I don't know how I feel about the second vowel dropping down.
Computer.
Yeah, I see what they're doing. Yeah. So the stress is on here. Even stress increases in volume too. So then when they're trailing off, it goes back down. So it's more like a tone 4. Computer. Enpitsu. Amai or sweet. I'm gonna have to, or amai. They don't talk about exclamatories or colloquial droppings yet. I'm curious if they add it as a grammar point or something for speech, but if you're based on like curriculum and stuff, I doubt it's, because it's usually referring to the textbook grammar. But one of the other, and we're talking about grammar, right? But oftentimes colloquially, even the endings to e adjectives get dropped if they are being used as like predicates and whatnot, or like exclamatories and things like ama as opposed to amai, like akai, aka, you know, chisa. That type of thing gets dropped a lot of times. They might make trivia, like a trivial, like a trivia, like fun fact in colloquial speak or something like that. You'll probably hear ama as opposed to amai. Different from amai. I don't know if amai is a word yet. So, right. Amai versus amai. Yeah, mild. Yeah, this one I saw a couple uses for, and that's weird. But sweet tasting becoming mild. Tempting is good. Insufficient. Oh wait. Is it the same amai? Oh. Interesting. I didn't think this amai was related to insufficient and non-sasak, which is amai. So I didn't think it was the same thing. I thought it was a different character. Half-hearted, not finished properly. Intriguing. Oh, hey, it has the euphemism suite. The English euphemism also. Like when someone's sweet. Like, oh, you're very sweet. You're naive, overly optimistic, soft, generous, right? Oh, you're very sweet. That's interesting. I figured maybe they would use a different character or something like that for this. That's something that would be really fun to share between English and, I don't know, other languages. I'm not even sure if Chinese uses sweet to describe someone who's like innocently optimistic this way. Achi. Wakaru, understand or comprehend, as opposed to know. To become clear, to be known, to be discovered. I know, I think so. Interjection. I see. Yeah, so this is the... This is nuanced with know and comprehension. So there's wakaru is the comprehension understanding one, and then there's shiru is to know. So shiru and wakaru has nuances between each other. This wakaru, and because of its nuance, using the negative version of it and stuff deals with the opposite effect. So wakaru is deeper in understanding. So when you say you don't want to comprehend it, it can be also be aggressively the other way. So like wakaru is high level understanding. It's actually the deeper understanding. So that means when you say you don't understand it, it also means you really don't care to understand it. And then shiru is like you know. So then when you say shiranai, you're saying like I don't want to know, but you could tell me. That's kind of like one of those things where you have the polarization. So when they're negative, I always like this type of thing. In English, it's very similar. However, it's not wheeled. It's typically not wheeled to a nuance in NetSpeak. In NetSpeak, these two things are the same thing now. So like always is both subtle and dramatic. Never is both dramatic and subtle. So you can't tell the difference without context. And the downside of English NetSpeak is that context is very difficult for the average net speaker to explain. It would be, in my opinion, it tends to be exhausting for them to explain. Like, for example, someone's like, oh yeah, you know, I always do this. Always? Do you mean like, so when you know, I always feel tired. It's like, okay, so do you mean you feel tired when you're sleeping? It's like, well, you know, what I mean by always is when I'm always tired when I'm awake, not when I'm literally sleeping. It's like, oh, okay. So you mean you're always, but within a specific condition. NetSpeak. Like, oh, this game always sucks. I'm like, always? So why are you playing it? Oh, well, you know, sometimes I still like to play it. I'm like, so does that mean it always sucks? Like, well, no, I guess not always. NetSpeak. And Japanese inherently, like, the question is, now I'm really curious. Does Japanese NetSpeak also follow this pattern where instead of using like wakaru, or maybe they just use wakaru, one like only wakaru, or they only use shiru, and then they mean the nuances based on context as opposed to like their intended use or like the nuance used outside of it. Because in English, I often differentiate between to know and to understand. Shiru, wakaru, shiru, wakaru. So when you say you don't understand, I also treat it as you don't want to understand. And then when you say you don't know, it means that you know, it's a lighter form. Like if you say I don't know, you know, shiranai. I take it as, okay, well, maybe this person's open to hearing the explainer, right? Nothing too deep. Like they want to know, but not too deep. But if they told me wakarimashita, right? Wakarimashita, I'm like, okay, so maybe I'll just tell them, but not too deep. Like, don't go deep, right? Don't go too deep, right? In both cases, it kind of just defaults to, all right, well, you got to fill out whether do they want to go deep or do they not want to go to deep. I don't think English NetSpeak has that anymore. Like, online, when people say, I don't know, it sounds like they just don't care. And then sometimes when they say no, like I don't know, they're like, oh, please tell me. But if you don't tell them, they're just gonna think that you don't care about it. So this is a really fun one for wakaru and shiru. I don't know if English, like when you're looking at English and you're an English speaker and you're studying the difference between, like you're trying to feel the difference between wakaru and shiru. does that remind them? Like, are you actively reading the English and saying, oh, you know what? You know what? You know what? I understand now. This is exactly what I mean. So are you reading this because it's just a means to an end? Or are you reading this because it's based on experience? Right? How do you remember that wakaru is to understand and chiru is to know? Well, do you know what know means in English to you? And do you understand what understand means to you? Because if there's a difference between to know and to understand, you can possibly understand why wakaru means to comprehend and understand, and chiru is to know, but not the same as comprehension. And then you can spin it into language learning, I suppose. Now we have Shinkansen. Okay. Airport. Hikoki. Hikoki. Iku. Oh no, iki. Oh, this is the direction thing. Or outbound, or yes, iki. Bound for, yeah, the direction or destination to which a train is going for. Iki. Not direction as in literal directions like go left, go right. It's the direction that's going. The direction, the movement, the way there. I wonder how this shows up in a sentence, in an English sentence actually. Okay. Ichigatsu. Okay. Futoi. Deep and thick. Sonorous. What is sonorous? Wait. Do I know? Like full, so to speak? Full in sound? Sonorous? Like echoey, bold? Hang on. Hold up. A person's voice imposing, deep and full. Okay, yes. It does sound like that. Daring, shameless, brazened. Oh, really? Wait. Interesting. So you could call someone both fat and daring and shameless at the same time. Nice. I'm kidding. But my thought is like, it's like, kare wa futoi desu ne? And you're like, wait, are you calling, like, no context, right? No context. It's like, are you calling a person fat or are you calling them shameless and brazen? and you're like, mo? Anyways, okay. Okay.
いちごは好きですか？はい、好きです。
Alright.
私の好きな色は緑です。
私も。Oops.
私はお酒が大嫌いだ。
Say what? Wait.
私は虫が嫌いだ。
Oh, maybe they add the lessons for a related. I don't think. I think Kirai is a separate. It's like a older lesson. Interesting. Oops, I missed the scoot.
クッキーを作る。
父の車に乗る。
Oops.
このベッドは私と弟のものです。
Every time I see vacation, I just think of vacaciones. Oh no, I started spelling. Wait. Oh no. Oh no.
あなたの休みはいつですか？
Okay.
この冷蔵庫は小さいです。
この花はチューリップです。
Tulip. Tulip, huh? Oh no. I don't know how to make the... Oh no, I don't know how to do this. How do you like... Wait. Oh no, I know. Is that not it? What? Wait. What am I missing? On to the... Am I... How did... Oh, con to the... Oh, no. Wait. Oh, wait. Do they just want pasokon? I don't know what's happening. Suppose could you use a different word here? I mean... Oh, right. Oh, is it bu? Is it kombuda? No. On. Oh, ta.
コンピューターを使う。
Computer. Yeah. Oh no. Oh no. That's bad. That's bad news, bears.
筆箱に鉛筆が5本ある。
That's bad. Oops. Oh no, wait. What? Oh.
こ
Oops.
の飴は甘いです。
これはタクシーです。
Really?
答えがわかる。
No. After all that
新幹
ranting.
線に乗る。
After all that ranting.
私の娘は飛行機が大好きだ。
行きの電車に乗る。
Okay. I see. I actually haven't seen Iki translated before. Iki I learned in context, quote unquote, through immersion. So I wasn't sure how they would translate it. So I get on train to my destination. Iki no densha ni. Interesting. I actually had no idea how it would be interpreted. Like how it would be translated at the moment. I might have seen it once or twice being translated, but I wasn't paying attention. Probably because it didn't come to mind. Oops. 1月。
1月になった。
Wait, which thick? I forgot which thick we're talking about. Because technically it could be atsui. This is usually for thick layers. Dang it. Thick layers. Oh man. Thick layers. Fat. Fat works here.
この木はとても太いです。
Okay. Dang. Oh man. I mean, I'm gonna be honest here. I experienced the same thing with English, so I don't think this is something that's gonna be. This isn't something that's unique to Japanese. I need clarification most of the time in English. I think the more nuanced your understanding of a language, the more likely you require that individuals who speak colloquialism, like colloquially, require specification. So like I can't tell you how often when someone says, "Oh yeah, that's easy," and I'm like, "Easy how? Like, what do you mean by easy? Like, is it easy because it requires less effort? Is it easy because you understand the material? Is it easy because you can do it consistently, but it still requires a lot of effort?" That's kind of the idea, right? And it's contextless. So in Japanese, there's an incentive to provide context, which is nice. And in English, I would argue because English is a descriptor language, colloquialism makes it so that English says even less over time. So I don't think this behavior is any different. Like the way I'm learning Japanese right now is still kind of the same way I interact with English. Like it's the same. It still feels the same. I'm doing no more work. Like I guess maybe that's the difference in perception. When someone says, "Oh, learning Japanese is really hard," or "It's very laborious," and you wait till you hear all these nuances in Japanese, and wait till you have to like mental gymnastics, and I'm like, the way you're speaking English is giving me mental gymnastics. I don't understand what you're talking about. Like that's on me, obviously. I don't really relate to people when they say like, "Oh yeah, Chinese and Japanese is the hardest language ever." It's like the way you speak English makes English very difficult to understand. Like the moment you said Japanese and Chinese is the hardest language that an English speaker can speak, my first thought is, I don't know how you're quantifying the word hardest. Because as far as English goes, without context, everything you don't know is the hardest thing you'll ever know. Because you don't know it yet. And then everything you know is going to be the hardest to comprehend because you haven't comprehended it yet. Right? That is... It does... Like, one would say... This is more like if you're practicing thinking very deeply most of the time, it's not hard to think deeply. It's kind of ironically hard to not think deeply for myself. So when someone says, "Hey, can you just like chill for a moment and not, it's not that deep, bro," that's hard for me. Like, and then if someone, you know, a lot of people would accuse me like, "Oh, well, why do you keep saying that everyone else don't think deeply and that they're like silly or they don't actively participate in their lives and don't care? What if they're really happy?" It's like, I didn't say they're not happy. I said it's very hard for them to think deeply if they don't think deeply most of the time. And then if you wanted to challenge me, you can challenge me and say, well, why can't you just take things like a vibe and not take things seriously? And it's like, well, I'm going to tell you now, that's hard for me to do because I don't do it very often. So, you know, when someone says, oh yeah, can't you just like learn for speed? And I'm like, yo, that's a fun challenge, but I'll tell you now, by default, I don't learn for speed. So whenever someone says, oh yeah, you'll learn more if you like only spend 10 seconds on things, I'm like, I disagree, because that's something, not only do I, you know, you can make an argument for objective reasons. However, subjectively, not only do I can tell you that I won't learn more going faster, I will stack on top of that and explain to you that it's not necessarily because it doesn't work. It's because I don't practice it. So if I'm not a person who blitz through things, I will still learn less than that person who practiced blitzing through things. So yes, you can most definitely consume more content by doom scrolling at a faster pace. Consume more content. And that person might actually be learning more than I do, right? Besides objective nature aside, quality versus quantity argument aside. But since I don't do that very often, I am very unlikely to learn even reasonably doing something I haven't. You still have to learn how to do that again. You have to learn how to practice that again. So that's kind of my argument a lot of times, my counter argument, when someone insists that I'm going too slow or insists that there are faster ways. And my first thought is speed is like a lesser proponent of my learning abilities. Like, I do not prioritize speed. In fact, lots of my comments come with disclaimers, right? When I mention about immersive learning, it is predicated on slowing down. The volume you are engaging in is increasing. That's why speed gets slower, not because you are learning less volume. Like when you slow down, the volume doesn't decrease in immersive learning. You're slowing down because the volume is bigger per unit time. The idea is that you're juggling other things that aren't specifically related to the metric you care about. So this is where it goes back to the first digression that I had about these numbers. When someone sees this number or see this one-dimensional accounting, they just want the number to go up. The fastest way to get the number to go up is speed for this very specific number. Well, here's funny thing about time. Time doesn't speed up for someone or slow down for someone. So they would find other things that can speed up. Items studied, right? How many cards you go through. And this stuff, low priority for me. Low priority. Like the idea that people wouldn't go over their vocabulary words because they already have gone over it, that's not immersive learning. That's more like passive learning. You tell yourself, oh, I already learned this, so there's absolutely no reason to ever go back through it. Like, well, yeah, number goes up. There is a time where genuinely you have nothing else to learn about the thing, I suppose. In my mindset, that's rarely ever the case, that you have nothing to ever learn again. Or like see again, or contextualize, right? It's how you use your time. So let's go over grammar stuff. Oh no, because tanoshi. So it's emphasizing the cause, right? So like, dakara. Wait. Tanoshi. Oh, it's just.
楽しいから スポーツを見る
It's an E adjective. I know she is an E adjective. Uh,
誰がしますか？
okay. Oh, wait. Wait. Negative stand. Wait.
新しくないコンピュータ
I must have missed a. I must have missed a kana somewhere there. Negative past. Polite. Like. Negative past. Oh.
「それは安くありませんでした」
Oh, and then we could use arimashiten deshita. I was using the slightly like semi-polite because that's the focus of my stuff. But yeah, arimashiten deshita. Ima benkyou. Wait, do I no. Negative progressive standard. Why the sudo? Oh no. I'm gonna say standard. So naiteiru. Negative progressive. Oh, it would be then shinai, eh? Shinaite iru. Oh no. Oh no. Negative progressive standard. So we're definitely looking at the teiru, but sudo is I think sudo is sudo special. Sudo is special, so we need the te form, the linker for sudo. I thought it was shite. What did I write? Did I write nai? Oh, because it's negative. Oh, wrong order. So shite nai. No, just shite. What? Hold up. I know. Okay, hold up. So you do the shite. But isn't it like schneided? No. Then how do you? Oh, negative. Is it just? How do you negative it? This is so shiteiru. Shiteiru would be doing. So then how do you eat it? genuinely have no idea how to. I have no idea how to negate. Oh, wait, no. Like... let's just say してない. No, that doesn't make any sense. Hold up. Why did they pick this example? Hold up. So, maybe we do like the no, that doesn't make any sense either. Maybe it's like no, that's past tense. Hang on. No, that doesn't make it. What about we just go with hold up. Maybe I can. Maybe it's like I think I pretty much covered the extent of what I can remember. I don't think I have. Like, the other thing would be like something like this, where it's neither all of those things. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else that I would be able to glean from this. This is more of a... This is more of a problem with having this in the negative. Right? Oh! It is stay night. Oh, you don't need the... Oh, you don't need the... I see. So you don't need the,
今、勉強していないよ。
Okay, so you don't actually need the... So what thing is this part of? It actually doesn't say anything about this. I'm pretty confident that it's not in this, because I'm pretty sure this is the exact entry I'm thinking of. And then if you need to... Okay, so let's break this down, right? Oh no, wait. Just kidding. Just kidding. This is the Te form of... Just kidding. There are connections to this. You can shite, which is the Te form of suru. And then this is the root form of iru. Or yeah, iru. So then you're doing the negative form of iru, which is night. Dang it. I thought about it backwards. What I was trying to do was I was doing negative. I was doing negative, then the te, then the iru. So I actually thought about it backwards. That was the problem. Now it makes sense knowing that I'm supposed to be conjugating the end, not the... I screwed up. Basically, the way this is written is what I was trying to do. So it's... Okay. It does make sense now. Like, this is the negative progressive right here. This is the standard suru to complement the negative. Alright, we'll keep that in mind. I actually had a comprehension problem on the formation of the conjugation, actually. So that's kind of a fundamental problem. I was conjugating the wrong thing for the negative. Like, I was not conjugating the backside for the negative, not the front side. Which still makes sense here too. In English it makes sense as well. Dang it. I feel kind of crummy about this one. Because am not is what is being negative here. Am not is the negative progressive. And then the ing is just the standard te form of suru. Feels bad. This actually genuinely feels a little... That's what happens when you hyper focus on something and don't think about it in a different way. So I thought about A before B, but I didn't think if B came before A. Feels bad. 2?
神戸へ行く。
They're not being... I guess they want to and at. Like, or they want to and head, right? Or direction. But to is branched from at and like way. So I still don't like how this is being done, but we'll get used to it. Because at then would be ni. But to is a branch from at and way. Oh, for me, so I have to like condition myself, no. Or in, yeah, in is fine. Oh no, wait, in is not fine. I sleep in the classroom.
教室で寝る
Now in collides with, now I just realized in collides is a branch from to at and manner. But the nice thing about this is when you read this, this is the action that's being, so there's no like direction. There's no direction. Or there's no like positional effect of the, there is kind of though. Huh. We're gonna have to think about those. I think this is gonna be normalized by frequency. Polite and assertive. Assertive would be like,
初めてでしょ
okay, and polite. Standard, yes, they're testing.
佐伯さんは親切だ佐伯さんは親切です
Predicate. This is testing predicate. Although shinsetsu is a non-adjective as well.
う。これは楽しい。これは楽しいです。
And then this is testing e adjective predicate. And e adjective predicate does not often accommodate an ending when it's standing alone. And then when you're polite, you can add this. Okay. Pass standard. It was Tom. Oh no. Wait. Hold up. Pass standard? Like data?
トムだった
Data. Oh, yes, it's data because noun, right? Noun, and we gotta remember it's noun and not adjective, right? And tomu is a noun, right? 日本語勉強 to go in order to study. So like oh no, we need to that doesn't make oh no. I'm doing the same thing again. It's the same problem. Okay. So we te form the shite and then right it's the te form, right? oh no. していきます。No? No. Hang on. Ni, right? Ni iku is how you go to like to order something. So the verb, the stem, do we just do shite ni iku? How about a grammar pattern that's a bit more polite? Oh no. How do you polite this? It's not using. So we just ikimasu.
日本語を勉強しに行きます。
Okay. I need to stop conjugating certain things on the right hand. It's the other side. It's related to iku and iru and aru. Okay. Also include.
私は先生と食べます。
Non-exhaustive particle.
暇か忙しい。
I am not a teacher. Standard. Oh, right. Janai.
先生じゃない。
Because noun, right? This is demonstrating not because noun or non-adjective. This is on effect. I want to say, could you, could I, hey.
土曜日なので旅行に行きたい。
Day would be a noun, so I needed to include the na. And then node, what they're referring to as effect is what's following. So they're saying that node emphasizes what follows. And then we have dakara, which is emphasizing the cause, what's before. At least that's mechanically what I'm thinking of at the moment. They were not a teacher. Oh, negative pass. Right, so then we take sensei, which is a noun, so it's janai as opposed to nai. Janai, and then the e is conjugated to kata because it's the past. And janai is the already the negative, right? And then to make it pass, we're using kata. I have no idea what this is demonstrating, other than it's a means. So maybe it's a means. I feel like there's another grammar point in here, but this is an early thing, so it's fine. I feel like there's also fragments, like a grammar point about fragmentation, where this is considered a statement, right? An adequate grammatical statement. But I don't think they made a grammatical point about that, other than the predicate entries, where like adjectives can be complete statements. This one would be another great example of it too. Or like a related example. And then we're using kata as a
学
position.
校からパーティーに行く。
Okay. Kind of a Dingus? Why would you do that?
美味しいレストランに行く。
Yeah, that's what I mean by two. Two is a branch from at and path. So gonna be frequency based. Yeah, it's gonna end up being frequency. Negative pass pull. Gosh.
早く起きなかった。早く起きなかったです。
So
早く起きませんでした。
the most substantial part of my like smooth brain right now is looking at the top. Whenever these things show up, I'm looking at the top two. This part is Duolingo centric, right? So what I mean is I've already spent a year in Duolingo, right? And how do you leverage what Duolingo beats into your brain? This stuff. So this stuff is not of concern, and connecting this stuff with these, I was starting this part actually. It's kind of like near the end. It was near the end of the 1 year is when this stuff was coming up, and then I was trying to connect them to this stuff. So that's how we're going to connect them. We're going to connect them based on the grammar techniques, right? You have the stem, right? Then you have the negation. The negation is actually this part with an E, and then this would be the negation. Then you do the past tense, right? So this drops and become the past tense, and then semi-polite adds the des. Wow, this one adds the past tense of the polite speech. So these things then would stack next to each other. This is kind of what I'm visualizing inside my head. And eventually doing this, I don't know, for the next month or two, this will become instinctively very quick. Like, that's how I'm organizing my thoughts. So these are the procedural things. Before, I used to do that. I used to do that with ikimasen deshita, but now I don't. But now I get another chance to use this to corroborate, to use it again to branch off to other things. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now for this part. And this, again, the setting is already set to focusing on these as opposed to this. Still related though. Wait, how is this different from... Oh, they're just demonstrating that it is, I think.
彼女は事故で死ななかった。彼女は事故で死ななかったです。彼女は事故で死にませんでした。
So this is to illustrate the polite, but it is, the polite actually doesn't change whether it's Godan or Ichidan for the most part. So then the most important part is this stuff, which is interesting that they gave me a prompt for this. It might be a separate note about polite in for Godan and Ichidan, like they had it separate as two separate points. Right. So you have to conjugate this, but it's always the outside of the, if there are exceptions, right? But this is when it changes because Godan's endings do change, which it goes to the the ah thing. So here, right? And then this is the negative, again, nai, And then this is the past, right? So negative past standard would be up here. Negative past standard plus polite. And then so on. And I'll probably be doing this as slowly and methodically as possible because eventually it picks up and it's nice and it'll feel comfy, hopefully, at some point. Contrastive particle. This is like but or however, the big but. How do I big but this? Does it matter which big but I use? It doesn't say literary, so technically I could type literary. I'm kind of curious what happens if I type literary. Could you try grammar point that's more casual? Okay, so it's inferred that when, oh yeah, maybe it's because of the option, but since it's literary, like it doesn't say literary or special case, then you're assuming the default case. So then the default case is either kedo, which they didn't say, like a little bit more polite, so that would be dakedo, right? Or no, actually, just kidding. I would probably need dakedo. No, this is just kedo. Okay. Can you include? Oh, dang it! Wait, kirai. Is kirai really? Oh,
豚肉は
kirai
嫌いだけど
is.
鶏肉は食べ
Dang
ます
it. Yeah, kirai is. I'm like, wait a minute. Is kirai an exception? One of the exceptions. I kind of like that they're adding. They make the exception feel more like the normal, which is yeah, it's a non-adjective. That's what I mean by exception. Thank you for clarifying, James. I know, and it's like suki. Yes, it's also like kirei. Exactly. It's exactly what I'm saying. So thanks for clarifying what I said. Let's see. To walk, and then which one? This practices the te form, basically. This is how they're introducing the te form. So so wait. This not Aru. Yes, it is. And the te form is go into
歩く、歩いて、
okay, and then right where they add the literary.
ロイさんの携帯は古いですが早いです
All right. Then we have 46 vocabulary. Interesting. I wonder what the timing was. Maybe because my timing is very late the last couple days for the shift. Okay. So this is probably the last 2 sets, probably.
何か私たちに似ているところはある？
大きな窓がある一軒家に住みたいです。
おや、もう机を拭いた？子供。まだ拭いていません。
I wonder. We'll probably use.
この本を読むのは簡単だ。
私の母はシェフでピザを焼くのが上手です。
道に迷う。
Wait, which type of office are we using? Oh, they're probably using 会社。
会社に行きたくないです。
Because they're going to the office. Otherwise, I would use like the literal office. Mm,
明日は友達と話をしよう。
Shio, the ending was a suited, like it's being conjugated, which I guess if you look at the Anaso, that would be kind of interesting. Oops. Uh-oh. Oh no. What was the first syllable? Oh no, wait, cafe. No. Dude, there's an alternative. I think this is the one they want. Like, how do you do that? Is that how you do it? Yes. No. Yes. Just a katakana. Right, to open intransitive.
もうすぐで夏になります。
レストランの客、灰皿を持ってきてください。
家族とキャンプを楽しむ。
アジア人より西洋人の方が鼻が高いです。
Interesting. Describing a nose as taller. Hmm.
その写真の男性は誰ですか？
Oh no. How do I create the... We're gonna... Whoops. One there. Oh no.
「今日は友達とパーティーに行きます。
I don't know how to enter it any other way. How else could you have entered? It could have been like BI? Maybe? I use TXI. Or no. I use like TEXI.
「私は勉強をすることが好きです。
Nosting. Oops, I missed the symbol.
彼女といると疲れます。
Polite. I'm kind of curious. Okay. How about a word that is more commonly referred to artificial light?
この部屋の電気は明るい。
I tried hikari just to see what they're gonna say about it.
その上司はとても怖い人です。
レシピサイト。砂糖を大さじ5杯と酒とみりんを大さじ1杯入れましょう。
Oh, how is meeting? Oh, meeting spelled in katakana. Interesting.
このワンピースは私には小さすぎます。
One piece for dress.
先生、皆さん、教科書の100ページを開きましょう。
Yeah, hiraku. Right, hiraku. Or transitive opening. Right? Let's try saying it more casually.
君は虫が好きじゃないよね。大嫌い。
僕の実家の庭には大きなプールが2つある。
Dang, imagine having 2 large swimming pools. Estudiad. Just kidding. Oh, this is showing the... Oh, whoops.
優等生。
Oh,
テスト
she.
前なので
Whoops.
勉強をしなくちゃ。
Yeah.
あなたの好きな色は何？
Oh no. I wrote fast and so slow. Oh, because I had another thought. Oops. Uh-oh.
私は走るのが遅いです。
Okay. All right. クラスメイトにはフレンリーましょう。Let's see. This works here, but let's try a word that also has a nuance of being polite and caring. Oh.
先生、クラスメイトには親切にしましょう。
Let's say.
姉が妹に、お母さんがカンニングは悪いことだって言っていたよ。
ここは何という大学ですか？
Gonna say probably. Oops.
これは日本の言葉です。
先輩に失礼なことをするな。
あなたが使っているスキンケアの商品はどれ？
How'd you get it? 買っている。Let's say. So then, いる。Yep. Okay.
あなたには子供がいますか？
あなたはどこに旅行へ行きたいの？
あなたは掃除をするのが好きですか？
あなたは暇ですか？
この街は long ago 昔はたくさんの人がいました。
昨日は子供と動物園へ行きました。
Whoops. Wrong Japanese.
僕は日本の文化が好きです。
Wrong Japanese. That's a pun.
帽子を脱ぐ。
Oh, I need the rest of it.
薬を飲んだけど体調がまだ悪いです。
私の子供たちは病院が嫌いだ。
私の父はその山で働いている。
Interesting. I guess this one, maybe.
私の父は優しいのでとても人気です。
Okay. How are our reviews stacking up? Tomorrow, 150, I see. Interesting. All right. So, that's it for Bunpro today. We have a few grammar things, right? Few grammar things. Let's go. Got a few grammar things. Not the current one, right? Not the current ones. That's for tomorrow's thing. So, biggest hang up is we take the verb stem into the te form. Then iru into, I keep writing it like a Z as opposed to, okay. Iru. And iru is where past, present, negative happens. Or does past, present, yes. Yeah. And this would be the progressive. So this is the progressive in which it is being ascribed the past, present, and negative. And then maybe a slight hiccup on also remembering that noun, non-adjective, plus was and then this would also go into is not and was not when you're negating this here. So I got jana. Right. Which then has e or atta. Oh wait. The e is yeah, that's fine. Okay. Hello there, Aqua. Hello. And then for vocabulary, I think vocabulary is fine today. All right, so that's a wrap for our Bunpro session today. If you're gonna watch this later, arigatou gozaimasu. As always, feel free to follow along, pick up Bunpro for yourself. You're always welcome to chat, discuss, what have you. I digressed a couple of times today about same topics, very similar topics, but applied into Bunpro. Some of the topics were, I'm doing pretty well. How are you, Aqua? Thanks for asking. So I talked about like the limitations of single variable, you know, like the shriek system, like the single variable form of motivations, and then maturation into double variable metrics, like this type of thing, and then maturing even further into derivatives, which is like a 3-degree data, as a way to understand the maturation of one's progress, right? And then later on, I digressed about the difference between explicit learning, which is passive most of the time, that is coupled with mass input, versus immersive learning, which incorporates, which builds on top of explicit learning by incorporating implicit learning and creation, which creation is led by output, right? And good too, that's great to hear. So that hierarchy, or the process, right? The process of starting from no experience, or assuming you have no XP, which is fueled by curiosity. Curiosity, which then is fueled by mass input. Mass input, and that's usually doing passive immersion, right? Passive immersion, which then gets augmented by gaining experience from that, which leads to, like, you're doing all of these and you're cumulatively doing all of these. These are not substitutions for each other. Then the XP leads to the incorporation of output. Output is fueled by active learning, right? For the process of output, which leads to immersive learning. And it's through this process that if one stops at this critical juncture right here, where they do not execute their experience to lead into some form of integrative active learning, right? Activity when you're reading things in the immersive case, this part here does not scale. When you stop here, there's no, it does not scale. And without that proper scaling, burnout is a concern. Right, that's kind of like to summarize the 1.5 hours in the middle when I was describing the transition point. The transition point is when someone is still consistently trying to passively immerse using imitation, observation, memorization, and recognition as the only source to scale up into nuance and comprehension. Comprehension requires that you levy your experiences that you gain from the passive mass input immersion in order to create active, constructive output that you desire, and leading to that active reading. So this active reading feeds back into the mass input, creating an immersive learning like cycle, right? So that's kind of a quick summary. Until next time, right? Feel free. It would be interesting to hear what other people's takes and how they overcome their cycle of being interested in what they're learning, I suppose. Until next time, 皆さんまたね。見てくれてありがとう. Right? See you guys next time. Thanks for watching. I'm gonna get up, walk around, stretch a little bit, and I'll be back for my Hanza Hero session. Thank you.